I'm KYNDA Curtis. I'm a professor at Utah State University, and I'm a member of the Arid Lands team. And my co-moderator is Dr. Eric Edwards, who's also at Utah State University, and we are one of the many economists on this project. There's like 4 of us. Anyway, so we have an economic development session at the summit each year. And so this year we have a mix of some economic development strategies within agriculture and uses of water, and so we have a nice cross-section of speakers today. We have 2 hours, more or less, so we have basically 4 presentations. As you know, I'm the last one listed, so if we run out of time, I'm okay with that. I can briefly talk about a project I'm working on that has to do with food tourism on Southwest Indian reservations. But anyway, so our first speakers today are from Ute Tribal Enterprises, which is the Uinta Ori Reservation that's in Utah, just south of Logan, where I am, about 2.5 hours drive, 3 hours drive. And we have Jeremy Kidd, who's the Ute Bison Project Manager, and also LATISHA REDHOUSE, who's the Marketing and Public Relations person for Ute Tribal Enterprises. So I'm going to have them come up and talk about the Ute beef project, not beef, bison project.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Kidd, the Ute Bison Project Manager, and I'm going to share with you today a little bit of the project that we started and what we use our bison for and the purpose they serve. And we started this pilot project with 6 head of bison that our tribal council approved us for. They let us do this project, the support of the business community and the elders and the community and the farming community too, the ranchers. They were all game for it. And why we started this project, we had abundance of bison out on the range. They're starting to get overpopulated, so we was wondering what we can do and reducing the numbers and why we're reducing the numbers. One of the reasons why we're reducing the numbers is to make sure we have a healthy herd and the land can sustain the bison and the management of them. And a disease issue too, so if you get too many in one area, they can start a disease or disease can come, but we round them up every year, annual roundup, and do blood testing. We don't give no vaccinations. It's all natural. And we started out with just a few in the early 80s, and now we reached 1,000 head on our reservation. It's the 2nd largest free-roaming herd in the United States. And so we started this project with the help of the business community, Ron Wapsock, and the other community members too. But the support is the first thing you have to get, and if you can get the support from the community and the elders, and that makes a lot of difference. And it's a very sacred animal to all of us natives, and it's been an honor to work with them side by side. I've been with the Fish and Wildlife for 20 years, and to move over with the Enterprise and be their bison manager, it was a real honor, and to take care of them. And now we're at this point, we're thinking about getting a USDA plant, and we've been into the meat market, but there's a real high demand for bison meat, and it's healthy for everybody, the native people, non-native people, because of the beef and other stuff that the people never had, and stuff that were brought in from a long time ago, that kind of losing our way of eating or traditional foods and stuff, and that's how diabetes and stuff came about. But trying to get back to the native foods and stuff, and it's just been good for the people, even myself. Unfortunately, I had a heart attack at this young age, but it's helped me heal and get back to normal. And we use the bison. It's the 21st century now. We use them in our ceremonials still, and we practice our beliefs, and they're still there, and we take care of them the most humane way we can, even clear up from when they're born, clear to the end when we harvest them. It's all humane. We do a lot of prayers and stuff for them as they go on, and what the sacrifices they done for us, and to keep us living. And it's like we started out with the 6, now we got up to 130, and hopefully we're getting some more every year that we pull off the mountain to sustain the food, the market, because we're getting into the meat market. It's been going good. And the buffalo, they know the sacrifice they gave to our people and what they're there for and what it's all about. And like I said, it's just been an honor to work with them and keeping them there. It's to preserve the herd. It's not only we're using them for meat. We're here to help other tribes too, that if they have bison or if they need bison, that we can provide that for them. If they need a new bull in their herd, or if they're looking to get a herd themselves, our herd is one of the pure herds here in the United States. We go under a UN sanction that there was 2 tribes that were qualified for the bison to be under UN sanction. If there was anything to happen in the country, that they would help us preserve these animals. And because the bison that we have, we don't have it's called a mitochondrial DNA, it's a cattle gene. We don't have that in our herd, so it's like the pure bison. And there's not too many places anymore in the world that have that, or in the United States. And it's been a long road and trying to get there, but we're here to help everybody else around the country, around the world, trying to preserve that gene and pass it on, and so our grandkids and the future can have the bison and use them in their ceremonials purposes, and nothing don't go away. But like I said, it's the support of the business community, the elders and the ranchers. It's been awesome that the ranchers they like us moving the herd and closer back home and stuff, so even people come to see them and look at them for tourism and stuff. But we use the hides, the heads, clear down to the bones. The bones we take back to the mountains to give back to Mother Earth and where they came from. And it's been fun, and like I said, it's real spiritual animal to all of us. I like to thank the Creator too, that given us these animals and given us the responsibilities to watch over them, take care of them, and clear to the grass that's grown. It's all natural. There ain't no pesticides or anything that we use. We try to go all natural. Their water's fed from a spring that comes from the mountains. So we try to take care of them better than ourselves, mainly. And like I said, it's to preserve the animal, but we use the meat too and stuff for our everyday lives. But it's good for health problems. I know some people are allergic to beef, but that's a way of eating better and healthy. And like the old people, we all just ate wild game and stuff. Now it's all genetically engineered stuff anymore, and that's why you see these cancers and diabetes and stuff, because we lost the way that our ancestors used to eat, and our traditional foods. Clear to what we feed the animal. You feed the animal what you want to eat. So if you want to feed them fatty stuff, the meat's going to be fatty. If you want it to be natural, you have to go all natural and feed them. We feed them nothing but grass, and like I said, there ain't no hormones or anything like that. And when we started this corral, this new project, the Bison project, it's the whole basin. They all pitched in from our reservation, and the oil companies too. They all pitched in, donating the pipe, because we have them in a pipe fence. Clear to the tribe, the business committee giving us funds to even purchase pipe and all the materials and hiring the welders. It gives all down to the tribal members. It gives them jobs, welding and forming. We buy local from the tribe, the hay from our people and stuff. So it's all a big circle that it goes around, and it's, like I said, it's been real fun. It's an honor to work with them and work with our people and giving them jobs, even to butchering them and starting this new USDA plant. And it's been a pretty uphill battle trying to work with the weather and the land and stuff. And LATISHA for helping us market the animals and stuff. And hopefully our herd even grows as long as we take care of them and slaughter just a few here and there to meet the demand of the people, and to even branch out more, that it just keeps growing and helping other people and making them eat right. Even the meat itself, it has like medicines and the omega-3 and stuff. It helps the brain function a lot more, and gives your longer memory and long-term memory even better. So it's all good for you. There ain't nothing you can say that it's 100%, and I think everybody should get on track and start eating right, and it'll help a lot of doctor visits you don't have to go to. Yeah, like I said, we just started out just with a few on our reservation, and it's multiplied so much that they go off the reservation. On the one side, they're allowed to, so they go back and forth. In the state, they offer permits over there, and our tribe, we sell permits, and we give it to the schools too, permits for non-tribals to come in and hunt, and all the money that's generated off the permits go back to the kids and to the scholarship fund for them. All 100% of the permits that are auctioned off and raffled off, it all goes to a scholarship for the kids and to help them and educate them. It's good to use your natural resources like that, and we're blessed to have the land that we have and these animals that Creator gave us, that we can do that and use that for our youth, and whatever we can do to help our youth and make more jobs for them and do a lot with them. But we take care of them humane way. One of my assistant managers, it was one of our Sundance chiefs that we used, or he worked with me side by side when we got this operation going, the project. And unfortunately, he moved, he's a manager now for the oil field, or one of our trucking companies, so that's good that he moves on and betters himself. But we use the animals, our ceremonials and our prayers every day. That it's been awesome though, that we started this project. I've been around the world catching animals from helicopters and stuff. I got to work in the national park, radio collaring animals, and it's just been fun. It's a lifelong experience. Every day I work with these animals, they tell me something new, or I learn something from them, and to help our kids. And it's the team that I work with the enterprise. It's been awesome with them. Good people, everybody's helping each other, and that's how a good project goes, with communication, a lot of communication. Nobody's doing this or nobody's better than nobody. It's all a team effort. It's all the community, all the youth tribe pitching in, the elders letting us do this. The first thing is to talk to the elders and see if we can do this, if it's right to do this, and to get back to our old ways. But it helps our tribal members too. It creates jobs for them, outfitting and taking care of the bison. Like I said, I worked with the Fish and Wildlife for 20 years, and LLC stole me last year, well, a year and a half ago. And I was excited. I watched the herd grow. I took care of them out there on the mountain and watched them grow up. I probably watched some of those little ones now. They're adults, old grandmas and stuff now. And that's what we use. We try to bring the older ones and call out the herd that they're a little too old and they had their time. So we take them and let the little ones grow up and keep producing. But it's all about management and or working with other people, different agencies, the state Fish and Wildlife, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. It creates a lot of jobs for everybody back home, and it's just to preserve the animal though. Like if any of you guys needed any bison or something, that I'll have a couple of cords up here that you guys can come by, or even meat. Sometimes we donate meat to different organizations and trying to help them, their banquets or even our ceremonial activities that we have going on. We donate meat to them, but we sell the hides, the skulls, or we'll donate them to other people or elders. Yeah. It's a long life dream for me to work with these animals. and watching the farmers grow the hay and going to get the hay to feed the buffalo. And it's, like I said, it's an honor to come here and talk with you guys. And if we can help you in any way, that we will. And I'll turn this over to LATISHA.
Great. Well, hi, YAVAPAI-APACHE, LATISHA REDHOUSE. I am the Marketing and Public Relations Manager for the Ute Tribal Enterprises, which is the business arm of the Ute Indian Tribe. So we have several different, just a little background about Ute Tribal Enterprises. We do have several different operations under UTE, and it's a really diverse business aspects, ranging from oil field work to restaurant management to now Ute Bison, which is really a cool, a really unique story for us because we've had so many different help from the community and other agencies, but also with the Intertribal Buffalo Council, the Intertribal Agriculture Council, and we've really had a lot of networks in helping us navigate through this entire project. One of the really cool things, and I love that here everyone's talking about working together and networking with other tribes and seeing how we can strengthen ourselves by, again, just unifying. We were able to meet with QAPA last year, and if you guys all know, QAPA just did a grand opening for their bison, or their USDA meat processing plant. I think it was in, and them giving us information, and us just working with really well-established individuals, we have been able to strengthen and well-position ourselves, so that way we're not, again, it's a modern world now, and we still want to adhere to our cultural ties and our traditional beliefs, and we really want to stick with that. But at the same time, we know things are different, there's politics we have to jump through, there's legalities, and so you're really unifying with different agencies and different consultants. We're able to really position ourselves in a really nice, positive light. But I think that the Ute Bison is a really good story. Again, I'm Navajo, but I work for the Ute Indian Tribe, and I know nothing about bison. I was thinking, oh, it's so it was really interesting to learn all about bison and seeing how the tribe interacts and revere with the bison. It's very important from the get-go that we encourage traditional values and traditional practices when we were bringing the bison back from Hill Creek to our holding area. Luckily, again, we snapped Jeremy from the Fish and Wildlife, and he's had so much experience with bison that he really was able to take care of it. I think he takes care of his bison better than anyone else who has any type of animals or livestock, so we're really proud to have him on our team. But if you guys have any other questions about our bison program, you can visit our website at www.utellc.com or visit us on Facebook.
We have time for a couple of questions. Anyone? Why not just, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just want to make a comment. The challenge we all have, it's all the assimilation, a lot of our cultural and traditional practices are taken away, within the last generation, parents and grandparents and all. So it sounds like there's a regeneration, when bringing the community, the elders, the tribal governments, and everybody together to do the project. And I see that as a major benefit because there's a big disconnect between our youth and the traditional ways and, protecting the resources, the natural resources. So I see this program utilizing your natural resources to bring those back and bring everybody back together again. So I commend you.
Right. Yeah, and that's what we love. Actually, one of our biggest priorities right now is to bring the bison to food. Again, ITBC, or Intertribal Buffalo Council's biggest purpose was to introduce bison to schools, and that's one of our biggest priority, again, because we have a charter school. It's called Uinta River High School that is on the Uinta NRA reservation, and then we've also have preschools and Head Starts that we would love to incorporate and start incorporating the bison into their lunch program as well. But we have been working really well with different community members, and I think they're doing a really good job. So, yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you guys so much.
All right, our next speaker is Mr. Buddy Rocha Jr. from YAVAPAI-APACHE Nation, and he's going to be talking about a couple of different projects that they have in their area, and he's going to use the PowerPoint. Welcome, Buddy.
Thank you. My name is Buddy Rocha. I'm with the YAVAPAI-APACHE Nation. And before I get started, I'm definitely going to have to take in some of that bison because the $10 T-bone is getting me. I've been eating that for the last 2 days. When I was asked to talk about economic development projects the nation had and how water conservation plays a critical role in it, our tribe actually has taken the perspective that water is critically important to any type of economic development. And it's due to the cause of availability. And it's really changed the dynamic of how we approach economic development and how we move projects forward, because now it's part of the total assessment or business plan strategy that we have to consider that particular aspect of it. So where is the YAVAPAI-APACHE Nation located? We're located in Arizona. We're located in central Arizona. We are situated what is called the Verde Valley. And within the Verde Valley, we have 2,500 tribal members that live in the area, with 6,400 acres of trust and fee land. And most of that has been zoned for agriculture, commercial, industrial, and residential. And within the Verde Valley, we're under the Verde Valley River watershed, which is the Big Chino Aquifer, which is north of us, actually funnels a lot of the water, and the Verde River is part of that system. And it's not a very big, the Verde River is not very big either. It's a very small perennial, one of the last perennial rivers in Arizona. So this is so critical to who we are as a people, because that's where we resided before we relocated to San Carlos and came back. So the Verde Valley actually has about 6 or 7 different townships: Camp Verde, Cottonwood, Clarkdale, Cornville, Sedona, and Rimrock. Our tribe is actually spread out throughout the Verde Valley. On the north aspect, we're up in Clarkdale, and on the most southern aspect, we're in Camp Verde. The largest part of our tribe is located in Middle Verde, which the Verde River splits that parcel. And our casino is located along I-17. If you're ever interested, I'm going to do a little pitch from the Cliff Castle Casino. We have a new hotel, pretty fancy. This morning's discussion was about water rights, and I think it's really important that you kind of assess that, because without water rights, economic development can really determine the feasibility of your project. The most important thing is you have to have confirmed water rights. Without confirmed water rights, you're not going to have a reliable stream of water that would help with that development. And that's really critical, especially if you're into agriculture. You want to have sustainable water rights in order to continue to expand your agricultural base. It's the same with the buffalo, and it's the same with cattle. you got to have those confirmed water rights. It's basically the firm foundation of all economic development, or even just sustainability of your community. Like any other community, with that water right, that's how you're going to grow. And sometimes you have to balance that out. You have to balance it out with your economic piece and your residential piece. Why is this critical for the YAVAPAI-APACHE Nation? Well, we haven't confirmed our water rights. We're still in litigation. We've been in litigation since the 60s. And it's not really optimistic at this point whether or not we can get those confirmed. Doing our assessment, and when you project into the future, that's really one of those critical points is how much development can you have and how much can your land sustain. Balancing that out. When you really boil down, our tribe has approximately 1,400 acres of the 6,400 that is trust. That's not a lot of acreage. And we actually live in an agricultural-based community. So a lot of the community is all ag. And one of the largest employers of the Verde Valley is actually our casino. And balancing that out, ag, and developing your community is so critical to have those confirmed water rights. One of the projects that we're currently working on, and in the Verde Valley, there is some momentum being pushed. Arizona basically, since the 1930s, there's been a prohibition on vineyards. It wasn't until early 2007 or 2006 where the state actually lightened that up. So why grapes? Well, grapes actually is a drought-tolerant produce, but it actually has a high yield, a value-added product to it. Well, there's sensitivity to this project, one being that you have the social aspects of it, but one of the most important aspects when we were considering new projects is let's look at water conservative produce. Let's get away from maybe some of the alfalfa that it's a heavy consumer of water. Let's look at some other types of ag. So we received a USDA grant, and we started doing this study. And at the time, Northern Arizona University helped us develop a business plan for about 20 acres. The Verde Valley has become very predominant in terms of developing vineyards, and is now being coined another Napa Valley. I mean, it's growing quickly. There are over, I believe, 40 new vineyards in the Verde Valley. So this is becoming very common. Well, we want to be a contributor to the overall dynamic because right now there's a shortage of Arizona-grown grapes. So if we can capitalize on producing this, and it's very drought tolerant, this really kind of helps the whole overall regional dynamic. So what we did is we looked at and assessed it foremost with water. We took into consideration the different types of water conservation aspects from drip irrigation and utilizing as much during certain periods. Interesting enough, this project is continuing to move forward. Our council is going to be rehashing this, and this is where we're getting into the funding stage to start developing the vineyard. Now, why is it interesting? Let's look at some figures here. For 1 cup of water, it takes 37 gallons just to produce that 1 cup of coffee. That 1 glass of wine is 31 gallons. 1/3 of beef is 821 gallons. Grass-fed beef is 7 gallons. one head of lettuce, it takes 23 gallons of water to produce one head. This came from USGS. They had it on there. So if you ever want to check out some additional produce they actually have. And these are all estimates. One of the things to consider too is they're not accounting for rainwater. So some of this can vary. If you have a very drought year, this can vary. The next project we have is an RV park, and I think this is where we get into reuse. We really started looking at an RV park, and the dynamic that we wanted to have was, what can we do with our effluent? So, in multi-purposing the effluent. So we really looked at it, and that goes back to the vineyard too. One of the most unique aspects, we actually have a vineyard that's using effluent as a source of water for their vineyard. And they're still ongoing. YAVAPAI College actually has a viticulture program where they're doing these studies and testing how the effluent is being used and how much of it is actually healthy. I mean, eating grapes or drinking grape juice from effluent, I mean, that's always questionable. I guess it's just the perception of where it derived from. But actually, effluent water is really high in nutrients. So the RV park, what we wanted to do was go ahead and repurpose that. We actually have about 20,000 gallons in an effluent pond that's to the north of our this project area. And what we wanted to do is look at sustainable methods of creating a fishing pond, probably a fishing hatchery, in addition to using ecotourism along the Verde River to help harness this whole environment that's being created along the Verde River. So, but we wanted to reuse the use the repurposed water. So this is very unique. As an economic analysis, and when we do our business plans, we really haven't in the past, in conducting engineering, we really haven't done a really good job of studying how much water a particular project uses. This is one of the first times where we have done in-depth studies and really are assessing how does that, and this is all determined upon our water rights. You would say, more water you use, the better you can solidify or at least determine, yes, we need this much amount of water. So this is one of these indicators where we really have to do a better job at assessing that. Especially our casino. We didn't do that in the beginning. We just drilled the well, dropped the well, and started building. Well, that's all changing now in the dynamic the Verde Valley has. In Arizona, I don't know if you know this, there are actually some communities that we have to truck water in. And it has been determined in the next 50 years that the Verde Valley will be one of those communities where they may have to truck water. Payson went without water. They had to truck water in for Payson, Arizona. So these are all critical for Arizona. Communities really have to start assessing water usage, especially when it comes to economic development. And thank you very much. Those are some of the most current projects that are coming up for the tribe, and we're continuing to move those forward.
Okay, so we got time for a few questions.
With my name is Thorne Pierre, I'm the environmental director for the Washington Tribe. Regarding the effluent, you're having to deal with it. It's like all the other towns having to do with the same thing, because I know here with in the Reno area, there's so much, 40 million gallons a day is what they're getting rid of. But again, they utilize it for what they call the purple pipeline projects with golf courses and so on and so forth, reuse. So incorporating your plans, is it also going to be incorporated within the other towns to do the same thing, to lessen the impacts on your groundwater and surface water?
That's a very good question. And yes, the Verde Valley actually, they're all doing the purple pipe. Basically repurposing effluent. As I mentioned before, YAVAPAI College is repurposing the effluent that's being produced by the town of Cottonwood. Camp Verde is doing the same. So we're basically, everyone is kind of accepted that yes, we definitely need to repurpose this type of water. I mean, one of the things too, that as a utility provider, we take in that water, but we can still gain something from it at the end. And a lot of the effluent that we're taking in right now and using and repurposing is actually for construction. We have a Highway 260 project that is about 10 miles in distance that they're doing right now, and basically kind of just using what we are producing at this point. But for our future projects, yes, most definitely, because I think with the college taking this on and really looking at it from a biological standpoint and us looking at it from an economic perspective, this is the only way our communities will be sustainable and continue to have it's for the betterment, at least for the entire community. Also, one other aspects that they're discussing is recharge, where they do a direct injection for recharge for utilizing effluent. The city of Cottonwood actually has built a multi-million-dollar facility to do direct recharge back into the Verde River.
Other questions?
I was wondering if your department had any investigations into the groundwater, surface water connection, and how that may change over time in terms of your economic plans into the future.
Not my department, but our Attorney General's office is really taking, because of the water litigation, they're really looking at the aquifers and addressing one other aspect is climate change. And the other one is the Big Chino aquifer that's above us that is supplying all the water source throughout the Verde Valley. There's been discussion through the state where they're going to potentially dam that water source and use hydropower. That really impacts us as lower end users. The other thing too, the Verde Valley, starting from the Big Chino, which is a little south of Sligman, flows all the way into Phoenix. And it supplies the lakes down in Phoenix, Bartlett Lake and Horseshoe. Well, SRP is managing that piece, and it is just so critical. I would hope that SRP stands up to even damming that area, because that's how we're feeding our aquifers. And if those aquifers end up, and one of the biggest aquifers in the Verde Valley is called the Big Mama Aquifer, and that just uses the snow impacts that are coming in and just does a recharge. And if that really impacts us, I know that there's a critical balance right now for the entire regional aspect.
Just quickly, do you do any pre-treatment or treatment of the effluent before you do injection or do your other purposes?
Yes, we have to. It is my understanding that we have to meet a certain standard, and I believe it's A++ before there's a direct charge. Now, filtration, they have to double the filtration system, so there's a lot of money that is involved in order to even meet that standard to do the recharge. So yes.
All right, well, thanks so much, buddy. All right, so next up we have ELISE TETON. apologies, Elise, for the mistake in the program. I met Elise, was it last summer? Like 2 summers ago at Fort Hall. They had a tribal water marketing summit, and I happened to get an email about it, and it's only a couple-hour drive, so I went up there, and she gave a really interesting talk. So you're a member of the Shoshone-Bannock tribe, so she's going to talk about water marketing in Fort Hall. So.
Animation. All right, so like Eric said, I'm a member of my tribe, and I'm the director of the Water Resources Department that started back in 1998. So a little bit about, I don't have a slide in here, but we do have our water rights agreement and our settlement in place, and that was finalized in 1990. And they hired me in 1998 to start the program because we were given the right to administer our own water rights. In addition to this, one of the main aspects of the water agreement, of course, was all the water we were given. We were allocated 581,031 acre-feet from the Snake River Basin. And we were given the ability to market our unused storage water that we don't use on the reservation. And so this has been, I think in some ways, a blessing, you know, for the tribe, and that it creates revenue for the tribe now that we never had. And I'll talk a little bit about our irrigated history at this point. Well, here's our tribal history, sorry. So the Shoshone-Bannock tribes, there are 2 distinct tribes, the Shoshone and then the Bannock, but we're recognized as one federally recognized tribe today. We are hunters and gatherers, and some of our camping areas were the Fort Hall Bottoms and the Henry's Fork confluence, because there was springs that did not freeze up, and there was abundance of food available for us. Fort Hall was established as a trading post in 1834, and then the Fort Hall Reservation was established by an executive order in 1867, and then later on we signed a treaty in Fort Bridger in 1868. The reservation was originally, I want to say it was like 1.4 million acres, and through cessations it was reduced by 1/3, and the present day reservation acreage is about 546,000 acres. So our irrigation development started about in 1889, and we call our irrigation project the Fort Hall Irrigation Project, and it is run by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. That is something that will have to be distinguished now, because even though the tribes were given the right to administer, we still have the Bureau of Indian Affairs that we have to work with, who actually pull the gates and monitor the irrigation project. We had initial construction in the 1890s. In 1907, we had about a 400,000 acre-foot dam that was built, or reservoir, called the Blackfoot Dam. We served about 30,000 acres. We expanded and built some canals. We had to rehabilitate. It sounds like we were getting started, and there were some failures, and we stumbled and fell. But we slowly got 50,000 acres into place by the 1930s. And then the construction was complete on our project. We had about 47,000 acres by that time. We then added smaller portions of the reservations we called minor units, and that was about an additional 1,700 acres. And then in 1954, that's when our storage water rights came into place, and that's the pinnacle of some of the marketing that I'm going to talk about here soon. But we were given roughly about 130,000 acres in 2 reservoirs. One's the American Falls, and the other is the Palisades Reservoir. Let's see. In the 1970s, We had another 34,000 acres come into development in what we call our Gibson unit. It's mostly groundwater. It was originally in the flood irrigated portion of the project. However, because of the sand of the soil, it's very, very sandy. The canals, it would just fall directly to the groundwater. So right now they use a more efficient manner of irrigating, and that's by using center pivots. And then, of course, the Mashad unit came into play, and that was about 21,000 acres. So we have about a total of 90,000 acres of irrigated land on the reservation. We have about 217 farms on our reservation, mostly cropland, which is leased to non-Indian tenants. We don't have very many tribal member tenants that do it. They're very small and they're on the smaller scale. We harvest about 155,000 acres, which we all know 90,000 is irrigated. The other portion is a dryland farm. And then we also have a market value of ag products coming off the reservation of about $178 million. And the main crops are potato, wheat, corn, alfalfa, and barley. And some of the higher valued ground that we have goes for about $300 to $400 per acre. And you can see that in the green. And if you look at the green up in the kind of the middle portion of the reservation, that's actually that sandy portion. I guess it makes some pretty nice round potatoes. So that's where most of the potatoes are grown. So I'm going to talk about 3 items and then specifics about 3 of those aspects. So water management allows for ag to flourish. So good management of irrigation water allows farmers to invest in higher value crops and better farm systems and other water uses to invest in enterprises, all leading to greater economic input. 2, water marketing brings in new revenue. Leasing tribal water rights to high-value uses can be an important source of revenue to provide resource for water management and economic development. And then finally, 3, water resources can incentivize industrial development on our reservation. Industries which are water intensive and water reliant seek to possibly relocate in our area with cost-effective and reliable supplies. So I'm going to talk about each one of those in more depth. So when we talk about good management of water supplies, you really got to know what you're using and how you're managing it. So then hopefully at the end you have a surplus that then you can market. So to do that, we have a very large water monitoring network on the reservation. And we use flumes. We have to do some manual measurements to calibrate, but we have a number of sites on the reservation. And we are funded by the Bureau of Reclamation through some of their water conservation grants, some Water Smart grants, some Native American set-aside grants, and of course they're all 50-50 cost share from the Bureau of Reclamation. But that's allowed us to put in, we have over 150, probably now going over 200 between groundwater and surface water monitoring sites. And that's a daunting task in itself to get them installed and then much less upkeep them and make sure they're calibrated and providing good data. Some of the other water-related information that we need to make sure that we're managing our water properly is our permitting. So we want to know who's drilling wells on the reservation, so we have to do permitting for well drilling. We also deal with a septic system, so we have an ordinance that regulates and permits the construction and installation of septic systems on the reservation. We also have a water use permitting so that people come in and it's like a mini adjudication of the tribe's water rights, and where we actually permit them a portion of the tribe's water right to use on their land. And then of course we have our water discharge efforts. This one hasn't really gotten into place yet because we don't have many of those activities at this point. We did develop a drought contingency plan when the time comes. However, we really haven't had to use it in the past since I've been there. I've worked for the tribes for almost 19 years now, and At that point, we have never really had to go into action with a drought contingency plan. We did develop a groundwater model and a management plan as well, so we know and we can collect data, which all the monitoring stations that we have contribute data to this model. And the reason that we've developed a model is because we want to be prepared if we ever have to make a call on any junior water users in the future. And we do have a Blackbird River Water Management Plan. It's one of the watersheds that the tribes get a majority of their water from. During the negotiations, the water agreement, there wasn't really any plan of how they administered the water in that basin, and so one of the mandates from the water agreement was to actually develop this plan, which identified where monitoring was going to take place, who was going to be responsible for those monitoring sites, and how would we allocate the water. We do have a water conservation plan. We have an integrated resources. We're working on an integrated resources plan. This is not just our department that is involved, but we have a number of natural resources departments that are also involved as well. And then we were also funded to develop a water marketing plan, which helped us identify how to effectively market our water, identify industries, and where we would want to go from there. So some of the current initiatives from our department as well, and some of these and most of these are funded by the water marketing revenue that we accumulate from our water marketing at this point. We do a lot of project automation for the Fort Hall Irrigation Project. We do have a new project coming in where our irrigation department pumps out for our Mashad project, and they put a rock dam in a natural river, and they check up the water high enough so that they can then divert it into their pumps to pump them onto the bluff. And in the past, it hasn't provided for fish passage, and so our fisheries are really worried for fish passage. They're also worried about dissolved oxygen levels and temperature because they really just take a lot of the water. And so it's been an ongoing conflict since 2000 when the drought really started taking place. And finally, our department is the mediator in the whole situation between the irrigation department and the Fish and Wildlife department. And, we kind of got tired of hearing the same, discussion going on, and nobody was doing anything. And so we're like, we need to do something. We need to forge ahead. We need to find a solution. And we finally did. We finally came up with where we're going to start a $1.6 million project where we're going to put, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Obermeyer Weir. So it's going to replace that rock dam they put in, but it's going to be an automated weir that comes up and down and address automatically with what they need. And then there's going to be a natural fish passage put on the side so that the fish have passage. So not only does it alleviate them going in and dredging up the bottoms and creating water quality problems, 2 times a year, but this will hopefully help them with some of the issues they've been having about getting the proper head to get their water into the system. We do have water quality threats on the reservation that we're addressing as well. The regional water hub is something I'll talk about a little bit later in the water use planning, and then of course the climate change. We were fortunate enough to get one of those VIE grants to develop that climate vulnerability assessment and an adaptation plan. So, water marketing brings in new revenue. So leasing tribal water rights to high-value uses can be an important source of revenue to provide resources to water management and economic development activities. So I briefly explained, where we were marketing our water from, and this is mostly for off-reservation. We do have the ability to market off-reservation, and it's from these 2 reservoirs. As you can see, one is actually partially located on the reservation. The other one is far up north near the Wyoming border called the Palisades Reservoir. So some of our timeline of water marketing activities. In 1990, we had the Fort Hall Water Rights Agreement, which created the Tribal Water Bank for us and this opportunity. In 1998, about the time that I came on, right around the time I was hired, I didn't even realize they entered into a 5-year lease with the United States Bureau of Reclamation. for about 38,000 acre feet. And then that was for flow augmentation purposes for the salmon. And then in 2007, that's when we completed our water marketing plan to identify various leasing opportunities. 2008, we had a new customer come in. They were willing to pay a higher rate than the Bureau of Reclamation. At the time, originally, they were only paying about $9 per acre feet with the USBOR. And then Idaho Power come in and they wanted to start at $30. And when you think about the amounts that we're paying compared to maybe other regions, you have to look at your regions locally. It's like a cost of living. So the market and what we're getting paid in Idaho may seem like not a lot to some of you in different areas, but water is decently abundant where we are, so it won't be as high as maybe what you might see in the South or in California. So, but it does bring in our area, it's considered a very high rate. And in fact, we set the rate and we've upset the community, the non-Indian community, that we've charged so much because it's ramping up their rates that they want to. So we're not exactly too popular. So Idaho Power, a very large power company in the state of Idaho, they come in and they wanted to rent 45,000 acre feet from us, and we entered into an agreement with them. And then finally, I guess we had a good relationship and they wanted to continue with another 5-year lease in 2009. We did a 2-year extension with them for another 45, and then finally, the market wasn't exactly right, I mean, for them and where they were at. And so they really, didn't need to rent from us anymore at this point. And so we had a unique opportunity to rent to the Idaho Groundwater Appropriators, we call them IGWA, around 45,000 acre feet. And IGWA, if you look at the Snake River Basin in Idaho, we have a conflict between surface water and groundwater users. The groundwater users came in around the 50s and they started pumping large amounts of water from the aquifer. They then impacted the springs, which were water rights, and they become surface water flows to the senior water users. So there was a big old lawsuit. So finally they settled on an agreement, and one of the items that they got to provide in this agreement was to provide 50,000 acre foot of mitigation water each year. There was other aspects of the water agreement, or their agreement, but 50,000. And they came to us and asked us if we would be willing to market our water with them. And so now we're in agreement with a 5-year lease with them, and we have gone from $9 per acre foot all the way up to $55 per acre foot, which has upset southeastern Idaho. And but now we're, we used to bring in 342,000. Now we're bringing as much as $2.4 million in from our water. And we only expect that to go higher if we're smart, create leverage, study, and we're looking at other opportunities as well. So what are some of those benefits? Well, I don't know if most of you, but on our reservation, we will buy property and there'll be houses, and we'll just put our departments in any of those houses, and we're like, okay, that's good enough, But the house wasn't appropriate for our department. We didn't have a conference room. I was in a bedroom, and the staff was in the kitchen, and we're like, oh my gosh. So we need, we have people coming here, we have legislators, we need a professional, facility. And so finally, this is what I call a small remodel. This was a home. And I think we kept some foundation in one wall. But now we have a conference room, offices, open space, our commission in the back. We have storage area, yard for all of our equipment and our vehicles. So that was all because of the water marketing money. The tribes don't really have a lot, when we have to go to our council and we ask for major capital investments, we're like, well, how are you going to get that, ELISE? Well, what are you going to provide? Find grants. And they're like, well, we have water marketing money. And they're like, okay. A lot of other departments don't have that. So we are very fortunate. My department. So originally, in the water agreement, we were given $7 million to upkeep this department, which is about 15 to 16 of us on annual. And our budget was roughly $900,000. Now it's up to $1.4 million. If you can imagine, you know, we were supposed to be able to live off the investment return of the interest, which was creating about, on average, $200,000 a year. That wasn't happening. We were eating into the principal, and pretty soon the council was going to have to make a decision about, do we keep water resources or not? So we had to think very quickly, and that's when we really got into our water marketing, and that was the only way we were going to be able to sustain this department, and then some, because we've been able to do some capital projects. So we have now since built up that $7 million back up to $9 million. We keep putting money into that because at some point we're hoping that the interest will be able to uphold us in the future. Also with this money, it's allowed us to create many studies, to hire experts, consultants, attorneys, so that we can be at the forefront with the non-Indians on the outside and be involved with them. That's something that we haven't always had, and we've been out at the table, and I'm not sure if they're exactly happy to see the tribes at the table constantly, and that to make sure our rights are protected and that the tribes' water rights are preserved. All right, water resources can incentivize industrial development. So I mentioned that we did another study, which we call the Water Hub of Commerce. And it was really we are aware that there's a lack of water supplies in the western United States. There's really no new water rights in the state of Idaho, at least in the eastern state of Idaho. When people are looking for water rights, they actually have to go buy the corners or ask or buy water rights from other property. And that doesn't happen too much. And so the water is over allocated, there is no new water, and so we know people are looking for opportunities. We have a unique water right, so we provide a unique prospect for high intense water industries. And maybe probably some tax breaks, you know, on the reservation if we do it right. So our business plan, it developed a financial analysis of all the industries. We ranked the industries by tribal priorities to identify targets. We identified tribal strengths and weaknesses for attracting those industries. And then we evaluated the competing water supplies in the regions. And so some of the industries that we looked at were like cattle operations, dairy operations, growing organic farms, to all the way to developing clouds or server farms on the reservation, gas, energy projects, and whatnot. And so the council had prioritized what they wanted us to go for. And so the next portion or next step of the plan was to develop our marketing materials, contact the industries to see if they were even interested, present at public events, and make sure that we were working with our tribal planning department, because so many times I've noticed that each one of our departments, we have 69 departments in our tribal government, and each one of us seems like we're kind of operating on our own, and we're not necessarily talking to each other. We have one group that's doing a potato packing processing plant, which, you know, we need to know about. We have another one that's doing an economic development strategy project, which identifies other types of industry. So we've got to make sure and work with our tribal planning department, because they're the ones that are developing the economic development bit. We were just primarily focused around water-intensive industries. And then, of course, a funding plan and financial assistance. So I wanted to address these questions, and hopefully, you know, I know I probably did get to some of them. I may not have got to all of them. But how have the tribes used water resources to improve their financial or economic situations? So as I mentioned, we didn't have $2 million coming in. Now we do, and the Water Resources Department was at a threat to be in non-existence, and what we were going to do moving forward. So we have increased, in my mind, our sovereignty we're able to stand on our own if we need to. And now we can provide more programs. So there's extra money left over, so hopefully now we can do some water quality sampling, more monitoring. I know the BI irrigation project has dilapidated to some extent, so we're trying to help them and improve their project for efficiency, because we know if we save the water, we can possibly market it elsewhere if we're smart about it. What makes water-related economics projects well-suited for the Fort Hall Reservation? So we are very fortunate where we come from because we're higher up in the watershed. We do have an abundance of water, and I think we're pretty fortunate to be able to receive about 500,000 acre-foot of water. So I think we're uniquely located, in that region where farming it's all around us, and so we've been able to take advantage of that. Positive impacts of water-related economic projects on our reservation. Like I said, it's bringing in revenue that we never would have had, and providing more salaries and labor and other projects. Obstacles that the tribes had to overcome to develop our water economic development project. So I think something that maybe some of you may be aware of, but as a people, and it may be a traditional value among all of us here, but we're always told, and we are taught, water is sacred. The concept of being water, and actually in some people's eyes, and when they think about it, is we're selling our water. That's not a traditional value. So it has been an issue of contention sometimes. And so, but what we try to do, and we try to be smart about it, and hopefully that's what I can provide. My background's in engineering. I am a tribal member. I was taught traditional ways, and I do understand that. But I also understand that we can't sit by and not do anything but to capitalize on it, because we need services, we need to increase our sovereignty, we need ways to find more revenue to come in, because we don't have the United States to provide the money that comes in. It's going away. We need to find different avenues for revenue coming into the reservation. And so hopefully, I'm able to convince, our tribal members that this is a good way to go, because sometimes, sometimes that water just passes us by, and if we can use it or capitalize from it, and get some money from it, all the best for us. And you mentioned recharge. We're looking into recharge as well, and we just did. I know it's not on my presentation, but what has happened is the state of Idaho, because the aquifer has been, it's been declining for many, many years. We're trying to bring it back up to a normal level. The state of Idaho, and with all these water conflicts happening, these irrigators are buying what they call credits, and they will pay you to run water through your system for recharge. And so without doing anything, I think we passed like 1,200 acre feet. Very small amount, because we were just testing it out and through our system, and just left it in the canal, and we were given a check for $36,000 for hardly doing anything. It's a benefit to us because it helps increase our water levels on the reservation, but it also helps the entire southeastern Idaho as well, and some of the conflicts that are going on. So, if there's any questions, I'll take them. That's all I have.
Thanks, Elise, for all your good work. You guys have come a long ways, and I think an example, for the tribes that have that capability as well, too. Question, and I don't think you really got into it. You probably don't really have to answer if you don't want to, but how do you safeguard the funding for your program? I know that you guys like develop a trust fund or something, and basically trying to operate off the interest off of it, or does a large percentage go back to the general fund for the council and provide other services? But maybe you can just do a little quick breakdown.
All right, you all know that I'm just a director, and that we have the business council, and they at any whim can take money whenever they want to. But Our water code identifies any marketing funds, and that's the law, that are used, shall be used for water resources purposes. We're very smart about doing that when we did our water code. But that does not mean that they can't take it as well. So it takes a watchdog and then, you know, bringing it up to the council if that's the case and saying, you know, what are you doing? And then flashing their law in front of their faces. And so that's how we try to keep track of it. They've been very respectful, and if there is any money that they need, you know, for other purposes, they will come and ask, and usually, you know, we'll be okay with it because they're our bosses. We need to say no, but I'm glad they're respectful enough to come and ask us. But they've really stayed away from it. They know the department is creating revenue and they know where it's going, and so they like to try to keep it separate. And what they say, they don't want it to go back into the general fund or the black hole because they don't know where it's going to go. And they have to be accountable to the tribal members too, because like I said, that was another issue, was tribal members, they're hearing, and we need to educate them, but they're also like, well, why are you selling our water, and what are you using it for? So we have to be accountable back to them too. So we help keep them in order.
One more question.
I'll just try to say a wonderful presentation. So I'm curious, how did you structure this leasing program? And I know you mentioned you had a number of people working with you that probably specialize in setting these programs up, but determining a price, is it annually negotiated, et cetera, because it gets pretty complicated.
It does. So the original agreement, the one that came back at $9 per acre foot, when I first came on, I didn't know anything about it. And I realized that it's a, you know, just like realty is and land, it's a unique expertise. Well, we have water evaluators. There was a company called Westwater Research. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're out of Boise. I don't know, for some reason their pamphlet landed up on my desk, and that's when I called them. And that's when they helped us. That was their background, economics, and they specialized in water valuing. And that's where we began. And they have been great consultants in assisting us in how to wheel and deal the situations. They do all the background. They know the markets in the state of Idaho. They know the markets outside of Idaho as well. They know their stuff. And so we use consultants to be able to do that.
And so the price per acre foot is fluctuating each year? Is it a moving target? Or?
And it usually, so it fluctuated a bit. So we went from $9, I think, to maybe $25 to $30, and then it went up and up and up. But this last deal that we did, we were at $55 with Idaho Power. But because we knew the farmers, we weren't sure if they were going to be able to pay that or not. So we ended up, and we were willing and dealing with them when we got them to $50. So we did decrease by $5. But we believed to create that relationship, we probably needed to do that.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Elise.
Thank you.
All right, so next colleague, KYNDA Curtis, who's going to be speaking on agriculture and food tourism development in Indian country. I believe, is your book out or just for sale now? So she has
it's on Amazon, and yes, you can order it, and it will be delivered within a few days.
Right, yeah. You know, get your pre-orders in. But so she's written about agriculture and food tourism generally. So I'm very interested to see how this is going to apply specifically to Indian country.
And I'm trying to get this computer to work. I apologize. It's not liking me today.
Oh, yes, I want to remind everyone that we have an evaluation here for the session, and so we've asked each of our presenters to kind of address the first 4 questions, and so we'd like to get your feedback on that. And so if you could fill this out and leave it on your table or leave it in the back before you leave today, we'd really appreciate it. Thank you. I'm a professor, but I also have a large extension appointment in the university system, and really my role is to help agricultural producers to develop value-added specialty products and to sell them. So I'm essentially a marketing specialist. Within the realm of economics, I know a lot of people think economics is finance, but it's actually, there's a lot of marketing, consumer preferences, looking at changes in how people value things. I specialize in food. I had a previous graduate student when I was here at UNR who went on and got a PhD in tourism, and so I've been working with her for the last 4 or 5 years on examining food tourism and agritourism as a way to expand markets for the local growers and to develop value-added foods and those types of things. And so, as Eric mentioned, we have a textbook, upper-level textbook. So it is fun reading, but it is a textbook. So, unless you're trying to work on getting to sleep at night, I don't know, if this is what you would want. But anyway, so she and I, along with Trent Tigerstrom, who many of you know down in Arizona, and working also with some colleagues in New Mexico, we have started working on a project to look at value-added food development and working with the tribes to take many of the amazing things the tribes are doing with the foods they already have and the history and the background, and use that as a new source of revenue for tourists coming through. I know a couple of you in your presentations this morning mentioned tourism, and so there's just so many aspects of being able to have those who are interested in learning about what you do and your customs and how amazing they can be. So before, I do have a slide here, and I wasn't sure that we would even have time for me to speak today, but I do want to point out that some of the stuff in my slides is directed at USDA in terms of getting funding, so please keep that in mind. I do not want to sit here and tell you what's going on your reservation. You know that. So anyway, and so these are some of the things I'm going to look at today. And again, we are really trying to show that food tourism and agritourism and selling food souvenirs and bringing people in, whether they be from other reservations or non-reservation folks onto the reservations to do activities and buy foods and learn about the history and culture and the foods there, is actually a very viable thing to be done in the future, to basically use agriculture to bring in income that is not already there, or it's there in some spaces. So, so we've outlined some of the things that are going on in the tribes and how many of them already have some focus on tourism, but really looking at to try to bring up the incomes and bring up the education levels and those types of things. Maureen went over this climate change adaptation research program that they're now updating this year. So this is just a quote from that. That came out in 2014, the older one, talking about how climate change is going to really impact the reservations and tribes in the desert Southwest, and so that's why I had that in here. So working with Sue, so Sue's Tourism, I'm the economist. We have really been looking at how people's preferences and the things that they want to do when they travel have changed over the last 15 to 20 years, and how important food has been in that. So I just want to ask any of you, you're to Reno. Reno actually has a pretty lively food culture. How many of you have bought a food item that you might want to take home? You would call that a food souvenir. Anything? Anybody?
I'm all about the food souvenirs.
Okay, okay. How many of you went to a restaurant to look for something locally sourced or some kind of item that you can't get at home? Couple of you? Okay, all right. So normally when I do this, half the room or at least goes up, and so people are basically designing what they do when they travel on food, whether it's eating out, whether it's staying in a farm, whether it's going to a cooking school, whether it's just trying to try new things. Okay, try new things is big. Okay, I want to actually, I have some slides here, but I actually want to tell you a story. So I grew up in Anchorage, Alaska, and my mom's first job out of college as a teacher was teaching in a one-room schoolhouse in Las Lunas, New Mexico, with the tribe down there. And she has many very interesting stories about that situation. And so before I even started looking at food tourism as economic development, about, I don't know, 11 or 12 years, I actually signed up to go down there and do an all-day class on making bread. So I went out there, we made traditional breads in the outside kivas. We put it together, cooked it, ate it, spent all day, my husband and I, and it was just fabulous. I actually got to go somewhere that I had heard my whole life stories about. It was an amazing experience, and that was an unusual thing to do back then, but now this is very, very common. And people want to do that. And especially, I don't know if I'm on the right slide yet, but people really want to experiment, they want to take things home, they want to participate in activities. This is just a listing of many of the plethora. I mean, even vineyard tours, winery tours, brewery tours, this is all part of food tourism and these types of things. Going to specialty restaurants, local sourcing, you know. So this is kind of a big umbrella. Of course, the traditional kind of what you might think of agritourism, corn, mazes, hayraids, that falls into it, but that's actually a really subsection of the situation. And so, you know, we've got some data on who these people are, what they like to do, you know, and all that kind of stuff from a marketing prospect. But tourism development, especially food tourism development, can do a huge thing for local growers. And I've got a list here of some of the benefits, including, you know, being able to stay on the farm and bring people onto the farm, and new jobs and especially new outlets for the younger generation who wants to stay on the farm. One thing when I moved from UNR to USU in Utah that I noticed is all of my students there want to stay on the farm, which is fabulous. But that was a slight change between the two states, even though they're so close together. But obviously working with their parents and finding things that they can do and new enterprises they can do on an existing farm. And many of them have looked at doing baskets and food-related activities and things on the farm to bring in new revenue so that they can keep their family as well as their parents on that farm. Here's some economic development things. Again, you know, basically bringing in additional funds. But also, I really want to point out that many of these people who want to do these activities are very interested in the cultural aspects. They're interested in the environmental and outdoor aspects. They want to hike, they want to walk, they want to learn all about the types of things that you guys teach your young people and that you guys treasure as parts of your culture. One of the great things about the reservations in the Southwest is many of them are already located to high tourism places, so national parks, state parks. And so you have the ability, okay, to provide the things that people are looking for where they're already going on a trip for another purpose. And so that's another really good reason why food and ag tourism can work well on the reservations in the Southwest. So we have a project, we were just starting on it. We had basically what I would call a mini grant. We're in Reno, lots of police. Anyway, a mini grant to get things started, and we're kind of finishing up what we would call a pre-project proposal, and have applied for a larger USDA grant. Our first round we didn't get funded, we submitted it again, and hopefully we'll get funded this year. But basically, we'll be coming and working with the various tribes, primarily through the FERTEP agents and other extension agents on and near the reservations, and looking at doing business plans, financial assessments, grants, to get both farmers and food producers on the tribes involved in bringing this as a new development opportunity for them. This is kind of hard to see, but these are our research objectives. It is a research and extension grant. Again, like I said, this was written for trying to get money from the USDA. So anyway, that's what I have to talk about today. Any questions? Yeah, hello.
How do the communities that, I was wondering how the communities feel in tourism, like food tourism, and if that's something they accept, or is there like a negative perception to that word tourism? Because the if you had any experiences about that.
My experiences with the very limited discussions I've had with tribal members at this point have been very positive. They would like to educate people with the types of things that they're doing so that there's better understanding. I know Mr. Kidd here mentioned they have people come on and look at the bison and those types of things. Yes, I realize that some things could be considered sacred and don't want to be discussed or passed on, but so far, that hasn't been a big deal. But again, we're in the very early stages. We'd have conversations probably with 3-4 tribes over the past 2 years. Yeah, Loretta.
Does your program educate about how to get certified for processed foods so that...
Right.
There's the whole thing in Nevada where you can't even butcher and sell poultry, I think, still.
Right, right. So Karen Allen, who's actually our food safety specialist at USU, is also on the project. And one of the interesting things that we're running into is, of course, many of the food processing and food safety concerns off the reservation, and the regulations there don't always apply on the reservation in many cases because of sovereignty. And so depending on the situation and where is the exact location of the farm or the exact location of the food processing unit and who owns it can be very varied, but yet, obviously we want to address those from a marketing standpoint and a feasibility standpoint, yes,
So
depending on the situation.
They have their own legislation governing process.
Yes, some tribes do, some do not. For the most part, they don't have nearly the amount of complication that we would have off the reservation. So also Loretta is kind of bringing up the cottage food law, if I believe, which we have in Nevada and we have in Utah as well. Some tribes have cottage food laws, others they don't. They consider anything. But obviously if you have people taking product off the reservation to be consumed elsewhere, some things probably will need to be taken into consideration, yes.
Might be a good breakout session down the road.
Right.
Have you considered working with indigenous food and agriculture in terms of your work and getting it out to the greater?
Yes, of course. And again, when the money comes in, I'll be talking to you. we'll be going into full force when that type of thing comes in. But yeah, we're actually hoping to. So I'm very much into quantitative analysis as an economist, but my co-person here, Susan, she's very into qualitative. We're actually looking at doing case studies originally, as well as surveys of various people and holding meetings with communities and the whole gamut of things. That's the plan, assuming we can move forward with this project. Did you have a question, Eric?
Yeah, just real quick, I know I'm sure we've talked for a long time about this, but what aspects of marketing make a food tourism business successful that which would translate onto a reservation? Does that make sense? What?
Well, okay.
Can you repeat that?
Okay. Well, can you repeat your question? Maybe it'll help then and me.
Oh, okay. Now am I?
Yes.
Oh, real closely. So my question was, what aspects of or what factors would make food tourism successful in general, and then how do you think that would translate onto a reservation?
Okay. So maybe I didn't fully point out, but a lot of the market for food tourism, whether it be stays, visits, classes, whatever, these types of activities and these types of things are expensive. And so they provide high value revenue streams to the people who provide them. And so like any business, of course, business planning, proper planning has to be done, but again, this is to provide a revenue stream, but also activities that are beneficial from a cultural standpoint and a learning environment and those types of things. So did I answer your question? I don't think so. But I'm thinking, go ahead, just a second. Go ahead, buddy.
Is there a particular demographic that are taking on this type of food tourism? I know that we're doing studies right now with the millennial generation regarding vineyard tours and such, but is there like a particular demographic that you're focusing on?
So you bring out an important point in that we see food tourism from all ages, from the mid-20s up through the late 70s, to be honest, excuse me. But some of the other demographics that are important are an above average income level, a very high education level, and so that can be people just out of graduate school to people who have had that education. We do see longer types of stays and longer types of vacations from people who are, if you will, baby boomers, so kind of the 55 and plus. They tend to spend more money, stay longer. And so depending on the particular activity, yes, I can give you very specific demographics, but there is in general for all food tourism, pretty specific other than age. Age, we see it across the board. Carol, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just maybe kind of wanted to answer Eric's question a little bit.
Okay.
What kind of activities and marketing-wise, like now the reservations may allow me to come to a store on the reservation to buy a product. I don't know that you would want me out in your fields petting your bison or going in your fields to do my pick your own, but there is a lot of opportunity, and I think that the bison and the Native American beef, those are incredible marketing, because there's somebody like me that has a little more disposable income that's willing to pay that extra, because I've known enough about Indians to know that I have that guilt that oh yes, we've screwed you guys over enough, let me help you out. So I'm willing to pay.
All right, I'll leave it to Carol there. Anyway, I've known her a long time, and it's not the first thing I've heard that I've been like, no, I'm here, Carol. But anyway, Loretta.
No, I was just going to say, what about online? I mean, if
Yes.
the cottage industry is an opportunity, and you didn't want people in your fields and in your community, why not market online?
So that's a natural extension. You come, you experience, and guess what? You can order it for the rest of your life, so that you don't have to travel back all the time. But yes, being able to provide things online, especially after people have had the opportunity or their relatives. So one thing with food and ag tourism is word of mouth is like the strongest possible marketing opportunity. And so, yeah, very much so. Thank you for bringing that up. Any other questions? Okay, any questions for the other three sets of speakers before we end the session?
I do. So I noticed that it says to call. I'm very interested in both the skulls and the hides, but there's no way for me. I just tried on my handy little phone to go online, and I would think that that would be the meat you could not sell online because it's shipping, blah, blah, blah. But the skulls and the hides, I think that you should be able to do that. I just tried to buy it, and there's no way to. Okay.
Here's my number.
Thank you.
Any other questions for any of the speakers? All right, let's give everyone a big hand of applause. I think we're about 8 minutes early, and lunch